Okay, my dear friends, it is a real great pleasure and honor again to start the second discussion in the series of the Year of the Soul of the Cities. And this time it's called the Sacred Ecology, Within and Around. I have a pleasure to introduce just briefly why Ecocivilisation is co-hosting with this incredible group of people who dive deeply into the research of the soul of the city and what is really that we try to discover, gain, and deliver for the future of our society. First of all, let me just say very quickly, Ecocivilisation movement, we see ourselves as a disruptive global cluster of people who care. We also try to create a safe space for engagements, collaboration, and innovation without any judgment, hoping to get through all the proactive and progressive thoughts that are searching to be exchanged, challenged, and proliferated further. And hopefully, we will add at least a little sparkle to the foundation of the future generations and future civilizations. I can already say that the new civilizational paradigm is around the corner. The old structures are exhausted, they're tired, they cannot longer deliver good solutions for the pressing challenges that the planet Earth is facing, and down to the last community where people are trying to find the solutions and, of course, live sustainably with the appropriate level of resilience. So within Ecocivilisation, we are inviting everyone to imagine even the structures which are so hard to challenge, and so many people have a real difficulty to even imagine that our societies could be structured differently. But I always say, even to my students, I say, well, whatever we have today, somebody imagined. So do we have enough boldness that we can challenge that? And of course, imagine again the structures within which we will feel comfortable and we will feel empowered. So one night, this sort of image emerged. And just imagine if our societies, our countries, our municipalities, maybe even companies have this kind of structure, that they focus on delivering benefits for beings, societies, lands, and consciousness, which we understand of a commonly shared knowledge, wisdom, and awareness. And of course, the relationships that bring all this together. Imagine that all we do, we're constantly questioning ourselves, are we benefiting to these basic elements of life? So the Year of the Soul of Cities is right on the spot, really addressing one of the most important elements of that. That's why we're so privileged to join and co-create this year. But the way how I observe at least European cities, especially the capital cities, I see that cities are losing their soul. And mostly is that due to a lack of systemic planning, lack of sustainable and resilient strategies. Somehow, in modern society, we started to jump on opportunities without taking a pause, take a deep breath, and rethink about positive and negative consequences, and especially negative externalities that such solutions will bring. So that's why this discussion is so important. And whatever you've done already, and we hope now to continue to co-create together, hopefully will bring a high level of awareness. And the topic attracted me personally a lot. So when I was searching for the meaning of this topic, I ran into this book, Sacred Ecology, by Fikret Berkes. And I was really inspired. So thank you for bringing such an important topic forward. And what was really inspiring was to see on how many different places on this beautiful planet Earth very similar thoughts are emerging, which means we are right on it. And I like this definition of sacred ecology, exploring the knowledge systems of indigenous and local people about nature, ecosystems, and community life, and asks what modern societies can learn from them. And a couple of years ago, Ecocivilisation movement really worked on a topic, ancient future wisdoms. We had several discussions. We ran the whole year on Ubuntu, talking to specialists from all different professions, what Ubuntu means for them. And it was so educational. So I do hope we're going to get back. And through this exploration, I just remember the richness that those discussions were bringing forward. And that's why I would say that this is an essential topic for ecocivilization as well, because we do focus a lot on cross-civilizational wisdom, where we humans are part of nature, not separated from it. And if you allow me, this is my last thought before I pass it on and then just listen to you and get inspired by you. I tried to put some parallels between ecocivilization and sacred ecology, in a sense of cross-connecting perspectives. And I could see that where we are already aligned really well is we both claim that it's time to shift from ownership to stewardships, which says that communities thrive when responsibility replaces domination. And the second one is coherence holding, rather than leadership, that mirrors the indigenous way of guiding through relationship, reciprocity, and observation, and avoiding hierarchy, which kills the creative incentives and sparkles that could be very useful for everyone. And last but not least, that humanity can coexist as nature does, which resonates the view that the future is not about control, but about participation, really, engagement and collaboration. So with that in mind, I would just say why it matters to me personally, to Ecocivilisation, and to our broad network, which we are now in 52 different countries around the world, and we're trying to really bring the essence of our future engagements forward, is that Sacred Ecology offers a framework really for the shift in consciousness that we are looking for, from fragmentation to relational awareness, from control to co-creation, from ideology to living practice, and from progress to real a balance and reciprocity. So I don't want to sound nostalgic, really, but I'd rather express the invitation to really integrate this ancient sensitivity with modern understanding, and really to evolve together, or let's say reinvent ourselves on a path to this new planetary civilization, possibly eco-civilization. So that would be my maybe provocative more introduction to the topic that we are addressing today. But I would also like to just use this opportunity and bring your attention to two more sessions that are happening this year within the Ecocivilization movement, which is we are wrapping up the full year of discussions on leadership challenged, which this wrap-up session will be on the 26th of November. And also we're wrapping up the year on mental health. And the wrap-up session where we're going to pull all the thoughts and knowledge that we gained together will be on the 20th of November of this year. And that's it. Thank you very much. And the floor is yours, Marina.
Thank you so much, Violeta. And let me share a little bit about our work on, it's not this. So our work in Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem. As you know, Year of the Soul of Cities was launched in collaboration between Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem, Ecocivilization Movement, and the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research. This is the year of the 12 monthly sessions dedicated to the notion of the soul of the city. And LCARE, or Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem, is a global consortium of 10 research big organizations which decided to be committed to the transforming cities into the living, thriving ecosystems. And we are trying to achieve these goals through fostering responsible stewardship on the places, place-based leadership, citizen engagement, participatory governance, helping to build cross-sectoral and intercultural and intergenerational collaboration in the cities, and of course ecological regeneration. And we decided that this notion of the soul of the cities, the connectedness and connection to the relational field which arouses through our emotions, culture, history, and spiritual bonds, which help people innovate, flourish, and take personal responsibility. So our work is mostly dedicated not only in collecting stories which resonate with the soul of the place, but also encourage people to be active participants and be responsible stewardship for the well-being, not only each person and people, but also non-human beings, places where they live, and the whole planet across time and space. And it's also important for us. That's why the sacred ecology idea and this approach to our inner and outer development, to our connectedness to the natural environment, these are the topical issues which can help people reimagine their role as planetary citizens, as residents of the places to which we belong and to which we are trying to for which we are trying to care. And that's our vision, that if we perceive cities as living ecosystems, as rhizome structures, and we all are nodes in this great rhizomic system, in this case, through reconnection to the spiritual sacred essence, the soul of the city, we will help people to gain belonging and appreciation, to foster their resilience and responsibility for the places where they live, which can help us nurture civic imagination, create citizen potential, and encourage people to sense their ownership and responsibility for the places to which they belong, for the sake for past and future generations. And even precisely through this work, through reconnection to the soul of the place, we already experienced this through our work with leaders globally. We help people take the responsibility for their engagement, for their collaboration, for bridging different interests for the sake of the prosperity of cities and all the life and all living beings in these places, and of course for ecological stewardship. What we have done so far, we launched the collection of stories last year, and we published the first edition of the Soul of the City book in July 2025. We collected stories from 14 cities, 6 continents across the world. This September, we launched the academic results of this research and launched the Voices of the World's Cities and Places collaborative sessions, where cities shared through their representatives their understanding and the notion of their souls. This October, together with Violeta and Alexander Laszlo, we launched the Year of the Soul of Cities. And today we have this second beautiful session with the wonderful and very inspiring topic, Sacred Ecology within and around. And in March, we are going to conduct a global conference, the first conference where cities are speaking through their people, but not people are speaking for their cities. And next year, we are going to present the second edition of the Soul of the City book, which will include all the pearls of wisdom which we are collecting together with you throughout the year of this work. And here is the whole schedule. You can also see it on the website of Ecocivilisation. This is their dates and topics of the upcoming events for this journey of the soul of cities. And today I'm really happy to introduce our wonderful participants. And I would also like to pass the word to Valerie Gleason, who will be moderating the first part of our discussion. Then we will have a beautiful conversation about the indigenous South African approaches to the sacredness within and around. And I hope that we will conclude with the open discussion with questions. So dear friends, please consider your questions, your ideas, share them throughout of our conversation in the chat. And I hope that we will have a beautiful discussion and conversation after the presentation of our esteemed guests. So please, Valerie, the microphone is yours, and then.
Thank you very much, Marina. I'm delighted to be here, everybody, and it's the first time I've met some of you, so it's actually a real pleasure to be here. So I suppose to give just some quick context and orientation around today, I suppose we will travel today from the planetary and ancestral through the inner and developmental into the embodied and relational, and discovering how sacred ecology lives both within and around us. So I will just briefly introduce the panel, and I suppose I would invite you all, if you want to look into more detail about any of the panelists, to look at the Ecocivilisation website. It's such an esteemed and group of people that we could be here for a long time in relation to discussing the achievements. So the panel will be is Wendy Ellyatt from the UK, founder of the Flourish Project. Dr. Paddy Pampallis in Cape Town, South Africa, founder and CEO of the Integral Africa Institute. Dr. Dumi Magadlela, I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you very much. In Johannesburg, South Africa, founder and president of the of Africa Coaching. Nicole Klassen from McGregor, South Africa, an Indigenous healer. Eric Kohner, Pasadena, California, USA, founder of Ecosystem, and myself, Valerie Gleason, from Cork in Ireland. I'm a transformative executive coach and vertical development consultant. So I suppose without further ado, we have a lot to cover, some great content, no doubt, and a wonderful dialogue. So maybe I'll hand over to you, Wendy, if you would like to maybe commence with panel presentations.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Valerie. How lovely to be here. I loved both your introductions, Violeta. You basically captured everything I'm going to talk about. And Marina, obviously, it's a joy to work alongside you. So if I just share my screen, hopefully. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Lovely. So yes, it's a joy to be able to share some of my own interests and work with everybody. And Violeta covered a lot of the things that I'm most interested in. And I guess ancient future wisdom really captures this, that we seem to be moving into an extraordinary phase of human evolution that in a way is going to restore many of the principles that were kind of recognized in human species across time, the core principles that are fundamentally about our innate, not connection to nature, but we are nature, we are the land. So it's very much about uniting the inner and the outer. And across the world, across all the projects I'm working with, everybody is starting to say, we need to look at the worldviews and the narratives that we're using. So I've been very involved over the last couple of years in particular, exploring this. But what we're really understanding is that flourishing and well-being is always relational. And it's a systemic and it's a generative process. And it means that we can never look at the inner without really appreciating that it's absolutely united to the outer, so that it's one systemic process that we're interested in. And for the last 2 years, I've been commissioned by the Galileo Commission to run the Worldviews study. So we're doing a 3 years worldview study, and that's examining in some detail the difference between the worldviews of modern civilization and the worldviews across time. And then saying, as we're moving into the future, what does this say about the worldviews that we're moving into? And we're saying we're moving into a unitive approach, but it actually is about allowing a multitude of different ways of being and knowing to coexist. So we're not coming up with one integrative worldview. We're actually saying there are multiple ways of knowing. So next year we have a 3-year, we have a book commissioned, a 30-chapter book, and we already have a number of the authors signed up, but we're hoping to capture all the different aspects of how this can be approached and to understand just how much the language that we use impacts the lenses with which we understand the world. So I put this in, I've literally just come back from the Conscious Food Systems Alliance, and here is an example of a very active global organization that is fundamentally doing the practical on the ground, uniting the inner and the outer. So it's looking at food systems across the world, and particularly looking at the well-being of farmers and leaders, to say that in order to walk the world in a really powerful way, we need to look at the inner aspects of our own lives. And so I've literally just come back from this very powerful coming together of people working at high level on exactly that. And one of the things we were looking at is the summit next year will be held in Bhutan. And here we have the first mindfulness city. And of course, that opens up all sorts of possibilities to look at how we understand cities and how we understand the kind of integrated way that we might forge new approaches. And I'm hoping that the work we're doing together, we might be able to bring to Bhutan to a degree next year. And another example of the way the narrative is changing is the Pocket Project's about to have the Climate Consciousness Summit, which is basically saying that the healing of our nervous system and the planet is combined. So what we're starting to see is this conversation is happening across sectors. So as the previous two speakers said, the introducers, what if well-being isn't something we have, but something we participate in? And I think the really big thing that's happening at the moment is we're shifting to a conversation that says that every single person matters and that every person is a participant in co-creating the future. And a lot of our work together is saying, how do we help people? How do we give people help, but actually give them hope, but actually say you matter, and we're finding ways that you can be involved in this conversation in your own local communities. So it very much is one human family and one living planet. And this is a project that I lead, where we're starting to see lots of different elements, and LCARE is involved in this. We're seeing lots of different sectors running research projects that are starting to look at this ancient future wisdom kind of approach. And this is, I say, not only is this happening across sectors, but we're actually seeing across the world lots of people working in the media wanting to be involved in changing the story. So they feel that they no longer want to be held in the fact that they can only get paid for selling stories that are perpetuating the old narrative. And I'm involved in quite a few conversations at the moment about how we could bring everyone from documentary makers to journalists to people working on Instagram to young people who feel that they are content providers. How could we all come together to help change the narrative? And the other thing that's also taking place is very much a move towards a unitive narrative and worldview. And there's been part of the evolutionary leaders group have had a SDG thought leader circle that's been looking at this in some detail that I've been involved in. This is my own project. My interest has been, how do you optimize flourishing, but how do you show that flourishing is an ecosystemic process beyond the human? So I'm about to evolve. We're working on a newly revamped website, and this is you're the first people that have actually seen a glimpse of what our new website might look like. But it is really saying that everybody's unique, that matters. We live in a nested state of wholeness, but it does mean that our smallest, every single simple choice is impacting the whole, and how important that is. So, as I say, these are the first designs that we've been playing with for my own project. And this is a framework that I've been working on for some years now, which is really providing a framework that enables other well-being models to be evaluated against whether or not they are approaching things systemically. So these are aspects of my own work. Ultimately, I think it is about ecological belonging. Now I can't see, let me see if I can move that. And I just thought of the questions that we might want to think about. So, and particularly to do with LCARE, where do we feel at home and why? Why does this place feel different to me than another? Why do I feel I can almost have a sigh of relief when I drop into this place? What is trying to be expressed through us uniquely, with every single one of us completely unique in what we feel and what our hearts are telling us? What stories and narratives are we telling ourselves? What stories and narratives have we had in the past that are perhaps no longer serving the future? What practices and rituals do we have that we don't even think about, but actually they really matter to how we experience ourselves in the world and our sense of belonging? How we come to know and share knowledge, what's been passed down, more particularly, what do we want to pass forward? And what has value and meaning for future generations? So yes, sorry, I missed my my figure here. So basically, we're saying that nature exists everywhere. We are nature. Nature exists within us and beyond us. So what I love about what we're doing with LCARE is it positions cities as living ecosystems. And increasingly, we need to encourage people to understand their cities, that they sit within bioregions. And many of the stories and the conversations that people have been talking about is their recognition that their cities are sitting within beautiful areas of nature and how much that impacts them. And obviously, we're looking at how we can restore and maintain this. So I don't have too much time, so I will whip through the regenerative initiatives. These are examples of initiatives that are being birthed in the UK that are actually looking at these aspects. So the Wellbeing Economy Alliance is a wonderful, powerful initiative. I've been involved on the Wisdom Council for the last 3 years. For anyone who doesn't know it, the wellbeingeconomy.org is doing beautiful work on really challenging the way we look at economies. The Transition Network is a very established, now international network that looks at local communities and how we can strengthen local wealth. This is a city that was called Participatory Cities, the project that looked at one particular city and how it could engage all the citizens of a city, and it ran multiple projects doing beautiful work. I've literally just come out yesterday of a presentation of someone working in Salford they're exploring in really great detail community wealth, and they have fantastic resources that they're sharing. This is a collaborative called the Visionaries, which is really helping to understand communities and their connection to nature. So the one thing we're seeing that is significantly different now to perhaps a couple of years ago was this deep desire for collaboration and the deep generosity that people increasingly want to gift what they're seeing and knowing with others. And I think across the kind of new paradigm is this desire to honor that we all have something to say, to honor that we're not alone and that we can be in service to something greater than ourselves. So, and I really like the idea of such a simple thing, Buckminster Fuller's idea that if we all were just net positive to life, it wouldn't matter whether we were a billionaire or a gardener, but what you need to do is ensure that your impact as an individual has been net positive to the world and to life. So I love the idea that it's about making it really simple, that we are a uniquely choice-making species above any other species that's ever existed, which means at every single moment we have the choice to move towards the kind of future that we're also interested in, or to move back to old ways of being and knowing. So that idea that I'm called at any moment to be the best version of myself, and to respect that other people have lenses that they're seeing the world in a different way, to have the humility to step back from judgment and to say, I really need to be thoughtful about where this person is coming from, because we have profoundly different lenses. And understanding we're nested in community, and then understanding that we are fundamentally, we are part of this absolutely extraordinary life that is carrying on around us. And I love the little Dumbledore thing in Harry Potter. It's just as I was watching a Harry Potter film, it's not our abilities that show who we really are, but our choices. And I think that's absolutely right. And that's what makes human beings so different. And yes, I thought I'd end with this, remembering to belong through body, land, lineage, and love, because ultimately I think it's about love and being love in action and supporting others to be love in action. So yes, I'm delighted to be part of this group. I'm delighted to bring my work to this group, and I've you can see my details at the bottom of the slide. I hope I've been on my 10 minutes.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much for that. It's very insightful. I must apologize actually to beforehand. I should have invited Nicole in before we started the panel discussion. So my humble apologies, Nicole. So what we might do now is just take that 5 minutes in relation to, you know, a centering and an invocation practice. So maybe if I pass over to Nicole before we move back on to Paddy and the panel.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Marina. All right, so we have 5 minutes to enter into the living field. So if your feet are firmly on the ground, please, and you can drop straight into the field. You can close your eyes or find a comfortable place to gaze. And as you breathe, allow an image to come to mind of yourself standing out on a horizon. There's no wrong or right here, and nothing to change. You're just noticing yourself and how you stand in your horizon. And gently become aware of someone standing behind you with her left hand on your left shoulder. It's your biological mother. And behind you, with his right hand on your right shoulder, your biological father. If you had adoptive parents, they stand on either side of your parents. Again, just notice any changes. There's no wrong or right here. Just inviting in our ancestors and noticing any changes and any sensory information as it arises. Behind your mother, with her left hand on your mother's left shoulder, is your maternal grandmother. And behind your mother, with his right hand on your mother's right shoulder, your maternal grandfather. Behind your father, with her left hand on your father's left shoulder, your paternal grandmother, and behind your father with his right hand on your father's right shoulder, your paternal grandfather. We're going to move a little bit faster now, so stay with your breath. Behind your grandparents, there are 8 great-grandparents. You can greet them. Behind them, there are 16, 32, and behind them 64, and reaching back, back, back. Wings opening up behind you, back to the furthest point on the horizon, all the way back. Thousands, millions of lives, reaching all the way back to the very first woman and first man. You can bow your head here slightly. Behind them, there's even more. There are animals. There are plants. There are mountains with crystals and minerals, the bones of the earth. There are waterfalls cascading into rivers that meander all the way back into the big water oceans and back to the very source of life. Allow yourself to float here and absorb this source of life, however you call it, maybe God, maybe Allah, whichever name you call. Maybe you call it love or breath. Take it in through every follicle and every cell, and fill yourself up, and then float yourselves back into the big waters of the ocean, bringing this golden light along the rivers and crashing through the waterfalls, over the mountains, gathering some minerals and crystals along the way. Say thank you as you go and keep coming forward. Greet the animals and the plants. You can greet the first woman and first man and bow as you come through your wings of ancestors now, and you bring your light and love forward all the way through. If anybody's waving at you or offering you gifts, say thank you and keep moving and keep coming forward through the 64, 32, 16, 8 great-grandparents, to your grandparents, your parents, and into you. Stay in your mind's eye and slowly turn to face all of life that has come before you. And here you can bow as far as your body will go. Again, there's no wrong or right. Just notice if it's easy, uncomfortable. Maybe you're a little bit wobbly. And as you bow, you say, thank you for my life. And as you rise, stay in your mind's eye, Yes, it is a nice place to stay, but you have a life to face that's in front of you. So slowly turn in your mind's eye. And now with your ancestors behind you, the elements behind you, with all of spirit behind you, now you look forward. You see your children, your pets, your projects, everything you will impact in your life, your gardens, the way you make a meal, the cities that you design, the teams that you work with. And now you pour your light and your love forward, forward, forward. And you watch it cascade forward ahead of you for 7 generations. Everything you touch while you are here is touched by your life. And if you need a bit more juice, lean on your ancestors. And then you breathe life forward. And we bring some into our session here today to continue our work together in this wonderful conversation. Ashe.
Thank you, Nicole. It was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow. So we may continue with our panel conversation at this issue. I'd love to hand over to Paddy, if you'd like to take the mic after that beautiful invocation. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Valerie. And thank you, Nicole, for that. Just a very important noticing of when we're talking about the soul and reconnection of how busy we are, or how we are in the world and in our lives so deeply and so superficially at the same time. And how to keep remembering what it is to feel and to be present with all that we talk about and all the wonderful things that we do, that we don't fall unconscious in that moment. And it's a rude awakening when technology kind of interferes with everything one prepares. So my laptop crashed. I'm sorry about the personal information in this beautiful expanse, but it is real life. And I've been running around instead of preparing and settling in and doing that, trying to get a laptop up. And there are so many things missing and I can't get my presentation up. So we're going to have to just be human in this presentation. And I might have to draw on slides that, who knows, will just speak to this moment or not. So I also had a conversation to give a little bit of scope. Dumi has worked with me for a very long time, and it has been a wonderful journey of teacher, student, teacher, moving into shifting the roles and having this shared kind of space of trying to see, not even figure out, but who is the teacher and who is the student at whatever place we are meeting each other. And bringing Nicole in, we're part of the Wisdom School in McGregor. And that is a place of accessing spiritual wisdom, but also the local wisdom, the wisdom of the soul, the wisdom of the soil, and the wisdom of the people to work with integration. So Nicole fits in from that perspective, and she can speak of herself and about her line. And Dumi has a line that he can talk about as well of ancestry. I have spoken to this community about the connection here of the Irish line and having the place of being in South Africa and on this African soil. So it's been very important for me from an Integral African Institute and to use the coaching in our coaching way. There was a question for me of not leaving the learning and development space and coming into becoming an analyst and a psychoanalyst and working with the developmental nature of human beings, right from infant observation into working with children and adolescents, working with family systems, to then training in group relationships and organizational systems, and bringing in that wealth of multidisciplinary teams who can deal with the health and wellness of our systems and processes and alternative health, alternative healing, so-called alternative healing, which actually is the reconnection in with healing that is deeply situated in the timeless memory of the plant medicine and the people who live in the land. It's been an interesting journey because, as we know, there's a great, I don't know whether it's a clash. It has been a clash. It's been an interesting process, but I don't know so much of a clashing now, because as a global system, we've all merged with each other in so many ways. But there are still these clashes of identities and clashes of ways of being, and looking at the otherness of any of us, looking at the otherness of a city, the otherness of the people in the city, the otherness of the ways of being, the otherness of culture. And part of the work for me on an ongoing basis in a personal way, and I've never always understood it, was to go, how do we integrate? How do we transform and integrate? And of course, we all share a connection with integral thinking and Wilber's work that I think catalyzed many of us, but more so the developmental aspect of working with Wilber himself, but also working from my own pathway of development across human consciousness and human experience, and in organizations and systems. I'm giving you a bit more detail of that because in 2006, I met Suzanne Cook-Rauter. And again, there was another, of course, this is this feeling of something more beyond the conventional. There is something that we keep getting pulled back into, and it serves us very, very well. Like, we have to know how a laptop works. We have to know all the technologies of the modern world. And yet we are missing the technologies of the more ancient world that have also been there and living with us side by side. So Suzanne and I have worked together for a long time, and I did have a conversation with her last night to talk about her at her later stage of development. She is now 80. And we beautifully taught in different countries around the world and talked about how cultures impress on this developmental landscape. What was so interesting from the conversation with her, before I move into that, I just want to close a loop around Dumi and my work, is around bringing the Western, and I'll loop back to it, bringing the Western kind of overlay of the single story that has been the West, to immerse it with all the multiple stories that is all of us sitting here and our own heritage. And thank you beautifully for that connection to our ancestors, Nicole. You know, who were those ancestors that we bring forward? And part of the work that we've been involved in our school and in the organizational work is bringing the African principles, the collective foreground into the individualism. It's not that us as Westerners or honing and striving for individual success or individual growth don't have it, but there's such a powerful process, and Dumi, I hope you'll talk to it, of the collective being so present in so many ways. A simple story, I have a black gardener from the Eastern Cape, which is a fairly poor and badly run area with such vital wonderful terrain and wonderful scenery and wonderful people. And a lot of the habits of the Eastern Cape with this special kind of lineage of Xhosa are moving into the Western Cape, which as its heritage was the San and the Khoisan and the earlier peoples who were based right on the south. So we have this influx of various tribes into a city and urban area that is trying to cope with the influx of trying to fit in all these different needs and seeing the poverty and the, when I say poverty, it is in wealth, but the poverty of the environments where they're not stimulating this beautiful connection back to the earth. And again, Dumi and I have worked with Integral Africa in trying to get the Western process of the Western mindset of rational linear thinking into a process-driven feminine aspect of transferring that knowledge center and honoring the masculine linear and the agency there, and working with actually something is missing in the territory of some of the models that we have and the technologies we have of the modern world. And that is this ease and the flow and the stilling that we felt as Nicole came in and brought us back to ourselves. That is the echo of the land and the soul working with us. So how do we bring that in to working with executives, working with leaders, city leaders, leaders of universities? All of these has been a huge concern for, and in the conversations that we've had with Suzanne over years. She is feisty, she is fiery, she is wonderful. I have seen her separate two grown big men in their wonderful indignation of butting heads with each other like bucks on the grasslands of our South African landscape. And she has got up onto a chair in between them and separated them. And this locking horns is something that I think we come together in all the time, where we come into this adversarial space all the time. And what does it take in the feminine to actually hold the fiery aggression of the negative masculine playing out and the healthy side of the healthy side of the feminine, because the negative feminine is not so pretty either. So I've seen this work of partnering with Suzanne, whose science mind and access to language and the deep kind of considerations of language. And part of what we talked about last night was how curiosity is really what has driven her as a purpose into her life, to find out where can we go beyond, what are the edges that we can go beyond, which led her to discovering the post-conventional stages. Now, interestingly enough, as we're working with an AI form of leadership maturity, which has been beautifully done by not necessarily in partnership on their own, but work with Suzanne by two students of ours, we've come to see that at first, in the AI form, we could not get past simply getting the results of a profile into the conventional outcomes where it was valid and viable and statistically proven. But with more work and more kind of nuance of training this big language system, we're getting the responses of going into the post-conventional space. But what is so interesting, that as we are moving into this research, we're seeing responses from the African continent coming up with the use of much more we than I. We are seeing that somehow, though, as we were going up a trajectory, when I say up a trajectory, that is a language model that is so entrenched up and down. So as we're going through the arc of this letting go of the conventional mind and opening into more of what is, she discovered this process and worked with the big egg, the kind of process of the egg expansion of moving along consciousness, what gives birth to greater consciousness as we move in a trajectory. And it was intuition. It was intuition for her that was felt at a very early age, where she said she remembers in high school talking about or asking the question of what is wisdom. And that has been a pursuit of what is wisdom? Where do we find meaning? Where do we find consciousness? And the connection with this AI language model is now that we can track that arc scientifically, proven in the touching visual process of being able to see that there is expanded capacities that we have, but we've talked about going back to what I think Gebser talks about in the ground of being. How do we actually reconnect our soul back into the ground of being and our essence? What does this have to do with the soul of the city? I think everything. Yesterday morning, not yesterday, on Monday, no, Tuesday. Whoops, is yesterday. The gardener that works for me, works with me, is from the Eastern Cape. There's the link, and he is living here with a home in the Eastern Cape and living in a shack, a very nice shack, but a shack nonetheless in one of our townships in a city area on the other side of our mountain. And my daughter's mother-in-law, sorry, personal stories. My daughter's mother-in-law needed help in the garden because they have an elderly man who's not well. They don't want to retrench him or anything. They just want some help in the gardening and support of their house. So I said, well, Sandela could actually help. But what was so prominent for me is when he came to my house and she came and I introduced them to each other, was the profound humility of the greeting from this 40-year-old man who greeted this woman. My heart wanted to burst. He bent over with what I can only say is not a less than, and it's misinterpreted, as a deep bow. And Nicole, I'm going to bring in again, you asked us to bow. With a deep bow of living humility that made me notice that moment in time and again go, Dumi, you're going to be speaking to this of Ubuntu and of this ability to see each other, really see each other. So how do we create those moments? How do we create the moments when you're rushing in? And I was very conscious today of the rushing down, getting my laptop. We put into a new laptop that downloaded, and some of the things are missing. And staying in equanimity and staying connected and staying trusting that there is a group of people here who can hold the conversation. And yes, we are doing wonderful things on this side of the world, and we're contributing to what you're doing. And as long as we keep doing that, I think we're going to make those connections that are the mycelium roots and are coming back to our our center, our soul.
Thank you, Paddy.
Dumi, I don't know if, I'm not sure how much time we have, if I hand over to Dumi now.
I think, yeah, if Dumi would, well, I was going to hand over to Eric now, if that's okay, or if it made sense for Dumi to come in now, but
We dance.
we'll dance.
Dance.
So Eric, thank you so much, Paddy.
I'm
Eric,
I'm happy to have Dumi if it works with the flow. Please go ahead.
okay, very good. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric, for that. Very generous, very kind of you. And thanks, Valerie, for being available for that, being open for that. Wow. Thank you, Violeta. Thank you for your words at the beginning. Wendy, your presentation. I love that. The challenge to rigid structures. Yeah, so much to say in that. Eco-civilization. I have something else to add to that, Wendy. Eco-evolution. Really, it's becoming, it's being. And thank you for being here, everyone else. Marina, Eric, I appreciate that. Nicole, wow, I did not want you to stop. Like, wow, I could see my grandfather's grandparents and such a warm feeling of acknowledging them and their smiles. Almost saying, you're okay, keep going. Yeah. Wow, Paddy. Connecting the dots, Paddy, and becoming. Who and what are we becoming? So thank you very much for that. So I prepared something for about 7 minutes or so.
Lovely. Dumi, your sound is very low. Is there an opportunity for you to maybe increase your sound?
I know exactly what I'm doing because I'm sitting back. Is that better?
Yeah, that is much better. Yeah. So 7 minutes would be great, and then we'll hand over to Eric. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you for that. I kind of get into the zone of this, because this to me is the hard work, the soul work that we need to wake up to, all of us. So I'm going to share some slides maybe afterwards, but I'll just speak to them now. Would you like me to share the slides? It's quick one. It's just
yes, please.
8 slides.
Share the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I'll speak to that very briefly because Paddy covered some of that. Paddy, I'm not going to touch on all that you referred to that I may talk to, but I'll just cover 1 or 2 things there with the grounding on Ubuntu and what it is and why we need that now. So very briefly then, have a look. Let me know when you can see the slides. Valerie, I'm going to talk with you. You can help me navigate quickly. If you can see my slides and then PowerPoint.
Coming now, I can see them coming through. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we see them. Right.
So I'm talking about Ubuntu, but more beyond the cliche of I am because we are, because that's just it's a layer in the top surface of it, of saying what Ubuntu is, and that explains it. But Ubuntu is more than that. And really talking about it, we're talking about African spiritual humanism, which has its grounding in ancient times, believing that humanity came from this part of the world, and we still have the, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the seed for that collective consciousness, understanding that we are not standing aside observing nature. It's within us. We are natural ourselves, aren't we? Unless we think we're something else, we are from outer space. So stories where Ubuntu practices reconnect, we need to understand that the story that Paddy spoke to, that recognition of the other, that bowing to each other like that. I experienced that in Japan, where I was shocked, people bowing deeper to me and saying, you're a visiting professor, so you're VIP, we respect that. And the profound engagement and connection with not just your physical manifestation, but almost connecting to the soul within you. I was blown away by just that. Ubuntu is the bridge. uniting. It's the sacred ecology that you're talking about, Wendy. It's the ecology of relationship, as Paddy has said. The ecology of connection, genuine, authentic connection that does not need explanation, interpretation, and judgment. That when you connect to it, it resonates with our very souls. And this is because in understanding what Ubuntu is not unique to any one particular group. The word is Nguni word, which Nguni is a group of ethnic groupings in Southern Africa that speak this language. The Xhosas, the Zulus, the Ndebeles, and others in Southern Africa that have this language. But the word Ubuntu comes from that. But in other communities, you find the expression of Ubuntu, which is genuine humaneness, human connection. So it's a global phenomenon that is best understood contextually and experientially. And we can't philosophize about it too much and do that. But I'm not going to cover more of this here. But a very important part is to understand that when I dehumanize you, when I dehumanize others, I'm robbing all of us of the gifts that can come through the person next to me, who I'm obstructing to becoming the best version of themselves. When I do that, I'm robbing and denying all of us the genius that comes through that person. Ubuntu is about co-creating safe, sacred spaces for all 8.5, 9 billion of us to be the best versions of ourselves and bring our genius into being in collective awareness of what we can do together. And because I truly believe that you may outrun that which is chasing you. Like, talk about a dog, a lion, or whatever is chasing you. But it is nay impossible to outrun that which lives inside you. The question then is, what is it that lives inside you? It's the greatness of humanity exists in all of us. Being humane is what we exude when we connect and live fully, seeing others as they are, not the stories, not the narratives. Hence, we need to ask ourselves, whose eyes do I see my world with? What new lenses do I need now to see our world afresh as one global, interconnected, inextricably interconnected ecosystem? One last slide, Valerie, and I'm done. What lives within me and wants to express itself in service of all humanity? And I may be obstructing that, because that's where the work is for all of us. Because if the wise elders in this call here today don't teach the children, guess what? The village idiots, symbolically, don't rest. They are at it at all times. And now we're all connected. They're better able to share their message very quickly like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dumi. And it's most what you've said there just personally resonates so much with me. And you know, so it's amazing, you know, from different culture and heritage, how humanity, how aligned we are and how similar we are. It's just really, really what you've said has touched me very deeply. So thank you so much for that. Eric, I'd like to hand over to you if that's okay, if you go next. There's so much rich conversation I'm sure that we're going to have when we start looking at the threads that connect all of our discussions. So I'm really looking forward to getting to the stage where we can actually start doing that and start pulling the threads. But first of all, Eric, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful that I trusted my intuition and allowed Duma to go before me. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody. I feel honored to be here. And I have to start off by talking about something personal. Some of you knew Gail Taylor. She's one of the co-founders of Living Cities Earth, and today is the 2nd year anniversary of her passing. And I had the honor and the horror of witnessing it 2 years ago on Zoom. So, and it was actually at around this time of day. So it's very, and also want to give a shout out to Nicole. She wasn't a blood relative, but she was definitely um, a mentor, and she was a mentor in the area of bringing it back to Dumi, contextual and experiential learning, which is my jam. And anyway, I've never done a 10-minute presentation on what I'm going to do because Nicole, you took her through an experience, and generally that's what I do when I do presentations is I don't talk about it. I have people experience it, but given the time limitation, I'm going to talk about it. And then I'm going to offer, if anybody wants to experience it, I'm going to put my Calendly link in the chat, and free of charge, get in touch with me and I'll give you an experience of it. I only have one slide. And it's called the 5 Knowledge Centers. Before I get into the slide, I want to give you some context of how I've been working with this model. So most of my career, I'm a coach and I do leadership development, and I use this a lot inside organizations. Over the last 7-8 years, I've really been committed to bringing, it's called in the United States, marginalized communities. I've been bringing this work into those communities also. And I will explain why I bring that up a little bit later. But first, the 5 Knowledge Centers is to me about the diversity of knowledge, which I think all of you have been talking about this morning. Well, it's morning for me, afternoon, evening for others. So I think this really does speak to the brilliance in all human beings and how the brilliance gets tapped into in different ways. So real quickly, as you can see, this is a circle with a stick drawing of a human in it. The head is where we access reason. And there's a question attached to each of these knowledge centers. The head is the what. What needs to be done? What do I need to know? What's the data? What's the logic? And then the heart is the who. And that's where we access love and affection. Who am I supposed to be with this human being? And who is this human being in front of me? The gut is intuition. I like to say it's our internal compass. The gut is always telling us where to go next. So the question that's asked there is where. The groin is where passion and creativity resides. And that's the why. Why is this important? Why must I be a stand for this? And then the last knowledge center is the hands. And I'd like to say that that's the, well, I don't say this, the philosopher Kant said that the hands are the visible part of the brain. It's also the how. How am I going to make this happen? So those are the 5 knowledge centers. And then the circle around it, as you can see, is nature. Nature is giving us all this information that we integrate. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the work that I do is inside organizations, and in organizations, and I would say in Western culture in general, a lot of emphasis is on the head and the hands. And I don't want to marginalize that. That's important. But when it's just that, that's when dysfunction, I believe, because we're not working with the whole. And ironically, and I don't have empirical knowledge, but I just know it from experience. When I work, by the way, the marginalized communities that I mostly work in are communities. It's once again here in the United States called system impacted communities. So people that are incarcerated, um, people that have experienced either violence that they've perpetrated or violence that has been perpetrated on them. Those are the major communities that I work with. And what I've noticed through working with them, number one, I'm very much the student, and I think it was you, Patty, that mentioned that who's the student and who's the teacher. I'm very much the student when I come in because I work with amazing people that have lived lives that I can only admire and bow to. And what I've also noticed in those communities, they have a lot of heart, gut, and passion knowledge. So one of my visions is to bring those communities into organizations so they can teach us how to better access those knowledge centers. And once again, I just want to close on a note of gratitude that I'm getting the opportunity to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I may go next if that's okay, and then we'll bring in we'll continue on. So I just want to share here. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's interesting, actually, some of the words that came up earlier on, and when I was preparing for this, I was very much thinking of kind of the journey kind of that I've been on myself, you know, and wonder, curiosity, attention, and intention very much come to mind as I kind of been journeying, I suppose, through my life. I'm a transformative executive coach and vertical development consultant. So thank you, Paddy, for sharing, you know, the work with Suzanne Cook-Reuter. I mean, she would be very much an influence in some of the work that I've been doing in the area of vertical development. But I suppose before I kind of get into it, I suppose I want to talk about, you know, myself as a young child and the influences that I had as a young child. And my grandmother, and Nicole, thank you for, you know, I was very much visualizing my grandmother on my father's side. She was so instrumental in keeping the stories alive for me as a child. You know, those old Irish tales of you know, of the goddesses, and you see there, you know, Danu, you know, the goddess of the Tuatha Danann, which is the people of the goddess Danu. And in our history, she very much embodies fertility and wisdom and is very much associated with nature and growth. What I loved about the story about Danu that my grandmother used to tell me is that legend would say that her children stayed underground and built their world there. So it was very easy for me to visualize, you know, the fairy folk. And of course, the fairy folk in Ireland who are very much central. And we still see on the landscape today the fairy forts. You know, the farmers will not move or will not cultivate land where the fairy fort sits. I was only looking earlier this week where a farmer was clearing land, and on the top of the land there was a fairy fort. They did not touch it because it is sacred. Or Eru, the goddess of Ireland, right, who gave her name to Ireland, Era, and she was a princess of, again, the Tuatha Danann, and she's remembered really as the goddess of Irish sovereignty. It's interesting. I've been carrying a coin of Eru for many years, and I never knew what she actually meant to me, but there was something very sacred about her, and I carry that coin with me all the time. So I suppose the what I got from my parents or my grandparents and my grandmother specifically was this love of storytelling, the love of our history, of our ancestors. You know, looking there at the Celtic calendar, you know, very much living with the Celtic calendar and seeing the difference, you know, the movement through the seasons. You know, Bulc there in the 1st of February, Bealtaine in May, Lunasa in August, and Samhain, the 1st of November. Samhain, which when we only spoke about during the week, was in relation to Halloween, where Halloween came from. So sitting around, hearing stories, the Irish language was very, very important. It was a language that was largely, I suppose, stolen from us, but our music has kept it alive, and music and dance is very much central to our connection to our ancestors. So I'm probably just sharing this is because it's really, really important to me in relation to, I suppose, the wonder that I had. Everything was possible in this world. So I suppose from a transition perspective, then I went through, you know, secondary and third level education really was not an area that I felt comfortable with. It was too restrictive. It wasn't an area that I kind of felt that I could really, you know, express myself at all. But what I find is when I look back over it is that there's very strong themes came through of the type of work that I have done over the 30 plus years. But it was always looking at the big picture. I was always really interested in everything that was connected with everything else. You know, building new capabilities, you know, new ways of working, leading systemic change in organizations. And interestingly, I noticed that I moved organizations typically every 7 years. Now, I only noticed this in hindsight, but there was this kind of constant cycle of kind of change and a need to move on to do more because my curiosity was always, I think Paddy mentioned curiosity earlier on. I was always a very curious child. And continue to be curious about, you know, the role of leaders. When I was in leadership roles, my role, the impact that I was having on others within the organization, and, you know, human motivation and the pivotal role of leadership in human flourishing. So I suppose from there returned to education and you know, a number of years ago, and that's where I became involved, became very, very interested in the area of adult development. So this is a model, I suppose, that kind of tells, you know, the different areas. So here from the cognitive perspective, you have Piaget and Keegan. And then when you look into the motives, it really was Maslow. And Maslow was the first model that I heard when I was very, very young, in relation to, you know, the hierarchy of needs. And then as we moved on, ethics and morals, you know, Kohlberg and Gilligan, and then the holistic self, Loevinger, Krug-Reuter, O'Whalon and Brax. So I became really interested in this idea of how we evolve as adults and pursued, I suppose, further training. Went back to college, first of all, did some postgrads in relation to organization development, transformation, and then professional coaching. But the whole area of transpersonal coaching became really, really, I was really interested in it. It was beyond the personal. It was something bigger, and there was this yearning in me to kind of look beyond the personal. I was that child who was always looking at the stars. I was always aware of something much, much bigger. So going down this road very much supported, I suppose, my understanding of you know, what was within me. And I loved, Dumi, when you said there earlier, it is impossible to outrun that which exists inside of you. And this was a way that kind of was bringing out what was inside of me, was bringing me back to kind of, you know, that childhood, that wonder and that curiosity. So the shifts really in relation to the in vertical development is very much then looking at, you know, moving from the me to the we to the all of us. And I know Paddy, you spoke about that as well. So what I have found in leveraging the state shift. So I studied with Dr. Antoinette Brax, who would have very close relationships as well with the likes of Susan Cook-Reuter, in relation to leveraging her approach to vertical development, and very much seeing that shift in the worldviews. I think we've heard that mentioned as well. You know, the worldviews, how we see the world, how we, you know, how we move from the me to the we to the all of us. And this approach has very much supported me. Also here at the end, we see how the changing worldviews are happening, you know, moving more from conventional to post-conventional, but they're actually happening at a relatively slow pace. And, you know, what can we do from a development perspective to support, you know, individuals and organizations to make those shifts? So this has been really, really important for helping me to understand what lies within for me, and making that shift really into the post-conventional. Now where are we going? Why is my... So this is the model that I the state shift model, and it's very much, I suppose, looking at the whole area of intention. Initially very much looking at, you know, what is my purpose, what are the values that I wish to lead by, and that's been really important in helping me to articulate my purpose. What am I here to do? And then very much really looking at, you know, then how do I engage with others, the interaction with others, how do I learn through engagement with others? So moving more into the collective and integrating all those, I suppose, learnings, ongoing learnings into my very being. I use this model called the Vertical Holistic Leadership Profile, which looks at the different lines of development: action orientation, emotional awareness, mindful attention, and spiritual congruence. But it also looks at the areas of shadow, and really helping me to, you know, helping me and helping those that I work with to understand where are the potential areas or that may be limiting, you know, I suppose, my potential, or maybe holding me back. These are models that I've been using now for a number of years. And this leads into the whole area then of third generation transformative coaching. It's very, I suppose it's quite expansive in relation to even the dialogue, right? It's really looking at the both, you know, co-reflection, which is a real shift away from developmental type coaching. So very much work in this area in relation to, you know, a coach and a partnering relationship, shared humanity, you know, psychology and shadow resolution, and so on. So we're bringing organization evolution into the conversation. And I know that I don't have very much time, so I'm flying through this. But all of this led me to be very intentional in relation to my focus and say, okay, right, where would I like to, you know, where would I like to be engaging? Where would I feel that I can really live my life's purpose? And Ireland became hugely important to me again about 5 years ago, which was very much bringing me back to my stories at the start that my grandmother would have shared with me. So I was very intentional in engaging with the city of Cork, and very much looking to the city and say, how can I be of service to a city that is very much evolving and which is very much forward thinking? So I was seeing that, you know, Cork was changing. This is the city where I live. It's a city that I love. So I've actively pursued the city council and knocked on the door for a number of years, and they eventually opened the door. So I've been working with them now, and this is my second year, and it's really just interesting to see the work that they're doing. Now, they've been doing amazing work. They've been doing amazing work in engaging with the community and the very diverse communities in relation to integration of, you know, the different nationalities that are coming in and out of the city. But it's just wonderful to work with the leaders in there and really helping them to make that shift themselves, beyond themselves, to really help them to work more collaboratively together. And they're beginning to see that by working more collaboratively. Now, from a central government perspective, as we know, funding comes down, you know, to the directorate, so they typically worked very siloed. Whereas this approach now is really supporting them to work more collectively and really seeing the benefits of that. So hopefully we'll see more and more benefits of that. Now, what's interesting, what I'm finding really, really interesting, is that my intention is very much around Ireland. And the organisations that I'm beginning to engage with have a very strong connection with Ireland. It's amazing when I look at it. So my lens of awareness has expanded into the community. I work very closely. I'm on the board with Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland, which is really interesting too. They're doing amazing work, but it's really seeing it's more beyond the dog. It's to do with the role of the dog and the engaging of the dogs with the children, with the community, and really enabling people, you know, who live with autism to live in a community that embraces them. And the dog is very much central to that. So I work with all these different organisations, and it's just really interesting to me that there's a very strong Ireland focus around it. The Inner Development Goals is another probably area that I've become really, really interested in. And it's why? Because it's around the language, you know, adopting language that people will understand. So I'm beginning to integrate that into the programs that I'm developing, as I am introducing regenerative leadership as well. Really looking to move from supporting organizations to move from that mechanistic approach, and this is the work of Giles Hutchins and Laura Storm, really supporting that move from mechanistic to living and flexible. And you can see it there, you know, from power over to power with, from short-termism to intergenerational. And this is the style of leadership that really I'm finding that vertical development aligned with the inner development goals is emerging. So what you're seeing here is a view of a model that is kind of evolving more and more, aligning the inner development goals here to vertical development, and really looking at the development of self in relation to other. You know, how we are being and how we are thinking influence how we relate to others, how we learn from others, how we collaborate and how we act. So this is a model that's kind of emerging. And this term here, fitafucha, is an Irish word, it's a Gaelic word, and it's referred to as interwoven and intertwined. And this is a language or an image that seems to resonate with people that I'm working with. It's understandable. So they're seeing that as they're, you know, becoming more aware of themselves as leaders, and they're learning more through collaboration with other. And it's not just other people, it's other, right? It's the expansive other. So I suppose, where is my curiosity going more and more, and I'll finish up with this one before I hand over to Nicole, is the work of an Irish writer and documentary, Sean McGann, an amazing man. Listen to the Land Speak, and he has written extensively in relation to our connection with the land. He sadly passed away a month ago, a very, very young man. But there, you know, he speaks about the sacred centre of Ireland, Ishnach. It is actually the navel of the country. You know, it is often referred to as that because of its central location and the belief that this was the point from which all life and energy radiated from. And it was manifested each year in the form of ritual fire that was lit at the summit. Interestingly enough, his ashes were spread on Ishnach on Samhain, which is a beautiful gesture. And also in relation to the rivers as goddesses, that's very much ingrained in our culture. You know, the mythology of the Irish rivers and the deities weaving fascinating tapestry of stories that reflect the deep spiritual connection that we had to the natural world. But I leave it with the question that he has posed. The question now, as the feminine energy is rising once again, is whether we as Irish people and those of other cultures who connect with us are ready to take back this mantle and begin the process of awakening and reconnecting with our past, with who we are, our land, our language and culture. The bogs, the rivers, the mountains and the shorelines are more than just preservers of old myths, bones and memories. They are energy banks and time sponges. and what is held within them seeks release. And that's probably something that's very much central to I suppose, my motivation and my purpose in life. So thank you very much in Oscuelga, Gurv Mila Mila Mahagut, which is thank you a million times. So I hope that resonated with you. So I'll stop sharing there. And Nicole, I'd love to pass over to you.
Wow, thank you. Gosh, so much relatable content, so much rich content. There's so many threads that I'd love to pick up on, but I'll start with making the contribution that has come through that I would love to share with you all. Thank you, thank you. I feel very blessed and honored to be with you all, and I hope this is the first of many delicious conversations with all of you. So when I asked, and I was doing my preparation about what wants to be offered here today, the topic that came was to share, it's sacred ecology in living communion. And what a privilege to talk about this. And the topic that came was to talk about ritual. Share about ritual as an embodied prayer, ritual as a way of returning into communion with all of life. So I'll just share what comes. I do have some notes, but I'll just allow the river to flow. So I'm aware that I'm speaking from my knowledge lineages, which are African, my indigenous Kohner, Bushman, Zulu ancestors, Tswana ancestors, as well as the knowledge of the Dagara people of West Africa, into whose medicine I'm also adopted. And then I'm also aware that over the years of training and learning, I'm also aware that there are so many similarities and relatability across indigenous and old cultures around the world. And in fascinating ways, the old cultures they all practice very similar principles, orders, and protocols around certain things. So as I share, this is not just an only exclusively African experience. I want to open it up as well in this model that it is an inclusive sharing. And absolutely not complete. And I won't have time to complete either in a lifetime, and definitely not in 10 minutes. So what is ritual? What is ritual for us? Ritual for us is the inclusion of spirit. It is an intentional request from spirit to intervene. It is also a way for us to align with the spirit world. So from this perspective, spirit is always present. The ancestors are always ready. The elements, the guardians, the fae, we call them the little people, they're always ready. It's us who are not aligned. So we use ritual to bring us into alignment. So ritual is the inclusion of spirit into everything that we do. We align into spirit, into the world of spirit, world of the ancestors and the elementals and the beings before we take action in the world, because we understand that our actions have consequences. So we align before we move. We align before we start our community projects, before we do our work. I haven't always aligned in my life. I spent many years in corporate communications in Johannesburg, driving a BMW and getting stuck in traffic, wondering why my life was not working. Until finally I accepted my ancestral call and started the work of remembering and coming back, much like Valerie, your journey, your transition journey. And I think so many of us here would have at some point gone into some kind of transition of remembering. And so I plunged very deeply into the African technologies. We call ritual a technology. Ritual is a technology. It is the technology for engaging the world of spirit. This is the old technology, the ancient. And we bring it back into the new world, because for a long time I thought that I'm going to go all the way back there. And I had this romantic idea of the old culture. And I had this really, it was this utopian, amazing, beautiful experience. And then somebody said to me once, well, our ancestors walked away from that, so there must have been a reason why. Maybe we can take what worked and bring it into this context. And maybe there is, I love that phrase, ancient modern, Violeta, from your ancient modern wisdom. So ritual is this connection to the life force. It is the connection to the flow of love, to the creative life force, the realm of the ancestors, elements, guides, angels, however you call them. It's the technology in which we use our bodies as an instrument for connection. We turn on all our sensory capacities, all the feeling, memories, sounds, smells. And also we do rituals at the right time, at the right seasons, with the right community. There's a time to do certain things, and there's a time to wait and receive. There's a time to give. There's a time to plow. So very much in alignment with when things get done. It's not like ancient African people didn't build. They did. They built. They had cities. They had homesteads, and they had a way of living. But there were certain times of year that building was done. So when we're building cities and when we're designing school educations and curriculums, when is the time to do this? And are we in alignment with when the information wants to come through? So these are the kinds of questions we ask about ritual. There are orders, there are protocols, there are even hierarchies in ritual. And these can be followed in our contemporary lives, in our projects, into everything we love and touch and impact. Anybody who has a garden will know there's a time to plant, there's a time to weed. One of the very fundamental beginning principles when we do ritual work is that we start with greeting our ancestors and all of the spirit beings. And that includes, Eric, actually our teachers. If we had more time to do that is based on the seated meditation, it can take hours to go through all the ancestors that we would normally say them all by name and greet everybody. It includes our teachers that have passed on into the ancestral world. It includes all teachers that have touched us and influenced our lives, adoptive parents, significant caregivers outside our family system, and our biological family. It includes the tree in your garden that may have helped you through sometimes, that has now moved on. It includes all the ancestors. But yes, we had 5 minutes. Big conversation. So we start with greeting everyone and we welcome everyone. And we say we're welcoming everyone, but actually we're aligning ourselves. So we like to, we think it's us that we are welcoming, but it's actually us adjusting ourselves. One of the other core principles of ritual is the exchange. And one of the simplest principles is that we give before we receive. In our village here, it's a rural village, and many of the people still have many of the old indigenous practices. So I have some of the old people, they come and visit me. They really don't have much, as you will know from many other indigenous and older communities around the world. They're very impoverished, and they've been severely impacted by the systemic colonization over the years. They don't have much, but they do show up at my house with bags of nectarines and carrots and onions from their gardens and butternut, and somebody makes a pot of something, and they keep delivering things to me. And I know at some point somebody's going to arrive and start talking about symptoms of some health ailment or problems that they're having in their family. And then I know at that point, that is then my cue to offer the healing work that I do, because they've built up a store, they've built up, they've given in order to receive. So when the people start arriving with bags of potatoes and things, I know at some point there's going to be a request for some healing work to be done. We give before we receive. Imagine if we could do that before we build the next building. We give to the land, we give to the spirits before we build, before we take from nature. Simple principle, but so applicable. We can apply it now. One of the other principles is that we leave no one behind. We build for the most vulnerable. And the pace of a ritual, the rhythm of the ritual, is for the slowest person. the most vulnerable, or the elder, or the children, if the children are involved. And in African life, the children are always involved. They're always around. And if it's not appropriate for them, the ritual is done separately and taken away from the community. And there are some personal rituals that are not appropriate for children. That is also one of the other principles. Everybody has a role and everybody has a function. The elders have their place, the ancestors have their place. Adults must be adults, children must be children. There are some conversations that are not appropriate for children. There's emotional work that children should not be carrying on behalf of the adults. They should not be hearing, they should not be engaged in. And somewhere in our modern lives, children are just exposed to absolutely everything before they can develop cognitively. And Wendy and Valerie also showed us the development cycles that are so fundamental. And in the old cultures, they really understood this. And they didn't have the technical knowledge for it. It was basically respect your elders, and this is a conversation for adults. But there was a lot more meat. There's a lot more to that. But those are the principles. Oh, hello, my baby. Oh, hi. Talking about children. So there's a place for everybody. Everybody belongs. Absolutely everybody belongs. Nobody is excluded. But everybody has their place. And everybody must hold the rightful place that they are in. So if you are the leader of the ritual, you must lead. The ritual doesn't work if the leader doesn't lead, like the teams. If a team leader isn't leading, it's all a bit wonky. In a ritual, everybody must participate with their whole heart. If they don't participate, or somebody's doubting the process or talking on the side, it doesn't work. It gets all a bit funky. And I mean, my goodness, if we're going to wake up the ancestors in spirit, we may as well get serious and everybody participate with your whole heart. And actually, the ritual leader's role is also to send people home if they're not participating fully, and actually say, no, you have to leave. You're not open-hearted. You're not ready. Or if somebody's really ill and they can't participate, to let them know it's not good for them to participate. We'll do it on your behalf. So the leader has to lead and everybody has to participate fully. And everybody is the leader in some way, and they all take turns. But also the leaders have to know what their medicine is. So if you are a water person and you specialize in water and water healing and water, you must know your craft. And if it's outside your depth, you hand it over. In a ritual, we're all working for ourselves and each other. Ubuntu, again. Yes, you are working for you, but you are also working for everybody. And if the symptom is in you, it means the symptom is in me. So we work for ourselves and each other simultaneously in a ritual with that understanding. So if we're working on marital problems, the way the community sees it, it's everybody's marriage. When we're in a ritual, the community came to your wedding. So when there's problems, everybody comes to the ritual. And there's process around it. A fire must be lit, herbs must be brought, they must sit and they must talk, and people from the community actually give their insights onto your marriage in a ritualized way, where there is no wrong or right, nothing to change, and there is no judgment. Where it's the understanding is that if the symptom is in this marriage, it is also in me and mine and my family, where we're working together to resolve the system and asking for healing. In African rituals, we talk out loud. And I think this is shared in many cultures. We talk out loud. We talk out loud to nature and the elements. We pray out loud. We talk, we sing, we dance. This is shared across many cultures. A lot of people call this sound healing today. And there's a very fundamental understanding that song, vibration, dance, the rhythm heals our bodies, resets our parasympathetic nervous system, and also heals the world around us. The old people say the trees want to hear from us. Are you singing to your plants? They don't look happy. Are you talking to the water? The water is not doing what it's supposed to do. I walk a lot with the elders here in the village, and they're like, "Ooh, this mountain is angry." You know, or they'll say things like, "The grass is having a bad month. Let's talk to the grass." Something was late? Ah. Sound healing. And also when we talk out loud, what I've realized somewhere along the way is that this talking out loud actually reprograms us, something that we call neuro-linguistic programming now. And I realized that at one point I was doing this course in neuro-linguistic programming, and I was doing my African traditional work at the same time. And this talking out loud was the same kind of rewiring. So that's why we talk out loud. We pray out loud. Each person in the circle gets a turn to pray out loud. This is a big conversation. If that hand is up, does it mean I need to start circling? Okay, I see the hand. Everyone has their place. Everyone belongs. And the balance of giving and receiving must be kept in a dynamic. So it's not static either, it's a dynamic. There's a giving and receiving, giving and receiving. Every place has its own vibration. When we do Thanksgiving, we don't do it at a place that has a farewell energy, for example. We feed the little people. We give them their food. Feed the waters. Feed the spirits. And participate fully in life after a ritual, while we wait for guidance. Dreams, synergies, interesting messages that come out. We participate fully in life. Did I manage my 10 minutes?
Thank you, Nicole. I know it's so difficult, isn't it? Thank you, everybody. It's been amazing, and I know where we are out of time. But if for those who can stay, even if we can stay for 10 minutes, for those who can, for those who can't, I appreciate we have run over a little bit. But thank you so much. But maybe what we could do, even for those 10, 12 minutes, is really, maybe for each of those, and for thinking of those who may look at this recording later, and maybe one word of advice or one recommendation that you may have coming from this dialogue, or something that particularly resonates with you. So whoever wants to go first, maybe some message that you'd like to leave with those that will actually see this later.
Thank you, because I'm going to step off in 2 minutes. I wanted to start. Thank you, Valerie, for the invitation. Nicole, I love that. I do talk to my cabbages and beetroots, and they love it. They respond. And I love that, what you just shared now, rituals. So my message would be, encourage everyone to have the courage to reach across these superficial differences and engage. And it may not always be safe, but we do need to be brave to say hello. I always say greet in 3 ways: greet consciously, greet intentionally, greet mindfully. Being aware that I intend to establish a connection. Being conscious of your own humanity, and then being mindful in this moment, I'm doing this because it's what humanity needs. So I see you all, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you very much for the sacred dance.
Thank you, Dumi.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Wendy, would you
I'll
like
go
to?
very quickly because I literally have to fly.
Yes.
I had a few things to say, but I'm going to hone in on one essence, I kind of want to leave it with the sacred quality of curiosity. And that young children are born, the single biggest aspect of being born as a human being is curiosity and reaching into novelty. And to reflect on what that does to us when the systems that we are living within diminish that generative quality of reaching out into novelty. And that what I see at the moment is, on a systemic level, we're reaching out into novelty. So I'll kind of leave it with that because I have to go and host another meeting. So it's been a really wonderful thing to be with everybody. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. Paddy, would you like to?
Yeah, I would like to join in, because another word that came up in Susanne and our discussion last night was fascination. And I said to her, well, you must know where that comes from, because she knows the etiology of all the words. And she took out this massive big dictionary that she's going to pass on, Oxford Dictionary, with all the details of the words in them, which she just can't bear to part with at the moment. She's clearing out, as one does in age and stage. And this dictionary we both looked up. I looked up through I actually looked up through this big Oxford Dictionary, and there was something about a fascinate is a spell. It's a bewitchment, and it can be negative. However, it is a fascinator is to hold attention, to create the fascination with something, because we were fascinated, I think, Nicole, as you said, around this simplicity. I almost feel from our conversation that I've got no work to do, because that knowledge is in our common wisdom. It's in the common sense, and tapping into that, I don't have to feel, I mean, I may as well go and put up my feet and just watch the roses and connect with the roses. But I think that being fascinated, which lends into curiosity, and to connect with Nicole, so what you're saying around what is the spirit, what is the soul, what are these different ethers. So thank you so much for a very rich evening, and how connected we all are actually through our stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. I believe something very similar in relation to, and I kind of use that word as kind of remembering. Nicole mentioned it as well, is not being afraid to remember. And you know, being open to that childhood curiosity where everything was possible, and in some way we kind of, we forget it because other things get in the way, or you know, society expects us to behave in a certain way. But what I have found is that kind of being open to that curiosity, not being afraid of asking the question, and not asking question just for the sake of it, but being genuinely interested in what it is you're inquiring into, I think is really key to flourishing. Eric, would you like to add something?
Sure. I'm just gonna bottom line it. I mean, this was a real reminder. It's happening in the United States. I suspect it's happening in the rest of the world. Is that we are so divided. Everything has become so polarized. And this last 2 hours was just such a timely reminder that we're all the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
if we can come more from that, not that differences are bad, but if we can come more from that, I think our lives will be more richer. Yeah.
Thank you. Nicole, I think Nicole has left. Have you? I think she had to leave, Nicole. So maybe will I hand back to Marina and Violeta? I suppose with the last few minutes, we did run over a little bit, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, maybe I can just share my my insights. So I think that for me personally, it was a very rich and a very important conversation. And you know, this reminded me this idea of that something, some ritual or some spiritual practice or being connected to the whole being is not a specific thing which we need to sort of locate time, sit down and have something. And I remember that, I don't remember who said this, but to some extent it was one of my mottos in life, that when you are connected to your inner core and to the whole world, each action which you take is a prayer. It's not just a specific time when you go to pray or to remember who you truly are or reconnect with your ancestors. It's if you keep in mind this sacredness of each moment, in each action, in each decision which you are making. I think all our speakers were telling us today about this. So it's so important to keep this sacredness inside of our hearts in each very moment of our life, in each step, in each decision, in each word which we send to others and to the world. And in this case, our connection to the world and our understanding of our role in the world, which be completely different. So, and here I think that I would like to pass the word to Violeta and her vision of eco-civilization, because again, I think that this is hugely aligned to this vision of what does it mean to be a person who is responsible for all this.
Well, all I can say is a deep thank you. Today, so many new layers have been opened. And somehow, very deep in my soul, I do really feel that on a quantum level, everything is a vibration. It doesn't matter in what kind of manifestation. Is it a plant? Is it a rock? Is it a human? Is it any other form of existence? And when I listen to you, somehow it keeps coming back, this thought. We just have to trust it. We have to trust the field and allow the seamless connection with it, and just allow ourselves to be part of this incredible wholeness while contributing the uniqueness of each of us. It's a fantastic feeling. There's so much more to, of course, train yourself and your inner self to have this seamless trust. But it was wonderful, and all I can do is bow and be very grateful for today's discussion. Thank you.